Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Thursday, September 19th, 2024, and this is Today in Bitcoin History. We're joined by Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister from YouTube and Twitter and all over. Adam's here to talk about a video that he made 10 years ago on this day. How's it going, Adam?
It's great. Pound that like button, everybody. I'm pumped.
That's right, we're live on YouTube and Facebook and not Twitter right now, but maybe. And I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen and show you guys what's been going on. I saw Adam's posts on Twitter and I thought it would be a good time to hop on the live and tell you guys what's going on. As it says here, Adam Meister at TechBalt. 10 years ago, glorious Bitcoin history. And 10 years ago on February 9th, 2021, although the original video is from September 19th, 2014, it says, I say that people should buy $10,000 worth of $420 Bitcoin instead of buying a 50K car. Those 23.8 BTC are now worth over $1 million. Long-term thinking, strong hand. And Adam, we're just going to go ahead and play the original video from September 19th, 2014, sporting an awesome Baltimore jersey, wearing my Oakland jersey in honor of that and the A's. Here we go, Adam Meister, 10 years ago today.
Going to Bitcoin, which is related to all these matters. Actually, it's a currency that no government controls, and I know a lot of you like to waste money on crazy things. You know, buy a $50,000 car. Well, do this instead of buying your $50,000 car. Get a a $25,000 car and invest $10,000 in Bitcoin. Oh, whoa, wait a second. Bitcoin could go to zero, couldn't it? Right now, it's around $420, I think, for one Bitcoin. But guess what? If you get a car for $50,000 in a few years, it's going to be worth $10,000. So you're going to lose the money anyway. Okay? So with Bitcoin, there's an upside. Sure, the $10,000 you invest in Bitcoin could be worth zero, but also could be worth $100,000 one day. You don't know. Going to Bitcoin.
And there it is. The car could be worth zero, but the Bitcoin, you don't know. Let's see if I can stop the screen share. There we go. Adam Meister, first your thoughts watching yourself 10 years ago.
Well, I needed a haircut then. I usually need a haircut in September for various reasons. No, it puts a huge smile on my face. I'm glad to be alive still. I'm so glad I didn't buy a $50,000 car. Imagine who still has their 2014 model car and they're like, and they could have bought Bitcoin instead. I mean, what a nightmare. What a nightmare someone would be living in if they actually had that option, and they'd be still driving their 2014 car and looking around at the people that bought Bitcoin. And that Bitcoin now today, this very second, is worth $1.5 million, I believe. So it's my pinned video on Twitter. It's people like it. And today it's 10 years since I made it. The Orioles had just clinched the playoffs. That's why I'm wearing it. I'd gone to a game where they clinched the playoffs, and I just threw the shirt on for the quick video and everything. And yeah, a lot has happened in those 10 years, quite a lot. And it's been it's been Bitcoin decade for me. It has been so awesome. Such a great trip.
So first, let's get some background on this video. It's September 2014. How long had you been in Bitcoin at that point?
So at that point, I'd owned Bitcoin since November of 2013. So I guess that's my official being in. I mean, instead of just talking the talk, the day I started walking the walk was November of 2013. So it had been 10 months since I was walking the walk. I had discovered Bitcoin a bit, I think, in 2011 or something like that. But it was hard to get. We're not going to get into all that. But I did. I walked the walk in finally November 2013, and so now I'd seen it go. I'd seen it go up in value, and then I just seen it slowly going down. And I was making Baltimore videos then, and I would mention Bitcoin here and there. And this might have been the only. Well, I made a Bitcoin video in 2013. This might have been only the second or third time I mentioned Bitcoin.
So what kind of videos you were making? Videos about the city of Baltimore, or
yeah,
what were they
about the politics. Oh my God, the nonsense. There was the 2014 election was going on around then also. So in the state of Maryland, Maryland was. So I was talking about. I guess I was talking about Larry Hogan and stuff. And, yeah. So and the Lieutenant Governor Anthony Brown. Yeah, so that's what I. But so I talk about Bitcoin a little bit also there, as you can see, and I said that is, I had the long term thinking then. I understood that it wasn't just going to be a miracle type of thing. I had high hopes, and I had been, I wanted to go back up again because it had been slowly going down in value. So I was underwater at that time in terms of Bitcoin. I think my average buy-in on Bitcoin then was like over $500. And people now laugh at him. Of course, it's great. I mean, it was great. Now you look back, it doesn't matter if I paid 700, 500, or 400. It makes no difference. Like now it's
At the time it seemed huge though. I think the
oh my
Bitcoin price had went to about 1500, fallen down, and then you're here at 420 defending almost the bottom, I think.
No. We still had a while, man. We had to go down below 200 and a few months after that in the beginning of 2015. So I still.
So anyone that watched this video and invested would have lost half their money right away to teach them a lesson for buying Bitcoin.
Within a few months, yeah. Within a few months, if they would have spent that 10,000, it would have been worth about it would have been worth $5,000 soon after. It's a very, very good point.
And
But
it's also important there
short-term.
why you separate your investment money from, say, your rent money or something like that. If you had to pay rent there in 2, 3 months and Bitcoin goes the wrong way and you have no way of controlling this or knowing, it could be a disaster for your personal finances.
Well, again, it's short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. And that's what I said. Who knows? I compared it to a car. I mean, you just don't think about owning a car for a year. You think about 3, 4, 5, 10 years, whatever. And the car is going to be worth less. But most people want that shiny thing, $50,000 SUV with the rims. I was imagining something like that. And that's what most people got. Hardly anyone got into Bitcoin then. Hardly anyone saw that. Now they see, and there's so many people when they see that video, they're just like, "Oh my God, I wish I knew you then. I wish I had heard of you then." But the funny thing is, plenty of people knew me in 2016 when it was worth like 600, and they didn't do it. I mean, I made all sorts of videos telling people, "Get 10 Bitcoin, get this in 2016."
Well, and if you look back at your old emails and your messages, you have all these things where it's like to your cousins and your family, you're like, maybe just buy some. I don't know if it goes up or down. I think it's good. $100 sounds like a good deal to me, but I don't know. And they come back. They could have bought 10. They could have bought 20. They buy 0 every single time. Friends, family, college friends, workers, everyone you talk to. I mean, 1 out of 10, maybe you could get a hit. But yeah, and I tell it to everybody. I really felt I tell it to everybody.
I got 0 people of my peer group. I have emails. I have found emails from late 2013 to a specific friend. I'm not gonna name his name, but yeah. And I resent it to him like years later too. I'm like, look, I told you. But it's I just love that I have this video proof, and we've made it 10 years, and I'm proud. It wasn't luck, people. It was not. People love to say, oh, it was just luck. It was just like. It was luck that a few months later I didn't panic sell when it was worth half of what it was worth, and I bought some when it was $900 and stuff, and yeah, I stuck with it. I stuck with it, and I'm very proud of the fact that I did. Now you could always find fault. I had slowed down a little bit in my purchases at that point, but no, I didn't get rid of it. No, I didn't panic.
It's always that classic joke where the man's on top of the roof and there's a flood all around him, and the guy comes by in a boat and he says, "Hey, come on, we'll get you out of here." He says, "No, I'm waiting for a sign from God." And the guy comes by with like a helicopter. He's like, "No, I'm waiting for a sign from God." And then the guy drowns and he gets to heaven. He says, "Where were you, God? I did all this stuff." And he's like, "I sent the boat. I sent the helicopter. I mean, what else you want me to do here?" And I feel that way with Bitcoin and our friends. Like, we reach out as much as we can, and we were crazy back in the day. We were absolutely like you're saying, I had no other money, and it was all in Bitcoin, and it was all worth a third of what it was a month ago or 2 months ago. And yet you're still sticking with it. So you had the Tech Balt channel. When did you decide to start the Bitcoin Meister channel? When did you start talking more about Bitcoin and less about Baltimore?
Well, it morphed after the election of 2014. It was pretty. I mean, nobody was like hardly anyone would even watch those Baltimore, Maryland videos. And when I I traveled to, well, I decided, not really thinking much about the videos. Like I had to get more hardcore into it in 2015. So I decided, for my first conference, I was going to go to the first Bitcoin conference in Africa. So I went to, I'd never been to Africa before. I went to Cape Town. And from there, I made up some videos in Cape Town. And so that was April 2015. And it started growing. It started growing from there. And I would get better right away. More people were watching the Bitcoin stuff than the Baltimore stuff, which says a lot. It was better to invest in Bitcoin than in anything to do with Baltimore during that time period and everything like that. So, I would still make, up until 2016, I was still making Baltimore videos here and there too, because we had the Freddie Gray riots were right after I got back from South Africa in 2015. I remember that. So there was still a mixture of them, but no, I really, I started focusing much more on Bitcoin, in lots of things. I started traveling more for Bitcoin related things. The South Africa just kicked it off at
So
that
how
point.
did you decide to go to South Africa as your first Bitcoin conference? I
I,
mean,
I'll, t- I'll, t-
I
I'll tell
went
you,
to
Wes.
Bitcoin in the Beltway. It was near DC. It was in DC. It was near Baltimore. There was options eventually. There was only a couple of Bitcoin conferences though back then, though.
No, there are only a few, and the reason I did it is because there was a lot of talk about how big Bitcoin was going to be in Africa. That was a big trending thing at the time, you might remember. And it was like, people, what I've learned in life is like a lot of times people predict, they start, trending on something that will eventually happen, but they're way too early for it. And man, like Africa still hasn't, I mean, dude, those dudes in South Africa, the rand was not in good. The rand's never in good shape compared to the dollar or a lot of other currencies. It's not the worst of the worst, but it's not. It's definitely not in top tier. And they all should have been getting into Bitcoin then. All those people at the conference, and they didn't. And it's just like it made so much sense for Africa then for a lot of things. So it was a very interesting conference in terms of like there were all these people that were like presenting companies that were going to make it easy to use to buy things, and all those things totally failed because nobody in Africa wanted to use it. I mean, it's like it looks so good on paper in the articles that were being written about it. No, but in reality, in Africa, no, nobody was using it at that time, and it's still it could have saved so many people's wealth, let alone in South Africa, like Nigeria. I had videos, I think, from 2015 that say your Naira is that's their currency in Nigeria. I've never been there, but they were already, inflating it so badly. I'm like, get Bitcoin now. And they're pretty tech, they're good with emails and the internet in Nigeria. As people know, they get many people get emails from Nigerians. Well, they don't know they're from Nigerians half the time. But anyway, they got internet cafes in Nigeria. They could have been buying Bitcoin instead of sending Westerners emails of curious nature. But anyway, hardly, I'm not going to pick on Nigeria, South Africa, whatever. It was way ahead of its time, Bitcoin, and still, it's not. There are a lot of good things now going on with cryptocurrency in Africa. I'm not gonna. It's not like a barren wasteland. Then it was a barren wasteland to say the least. But it was. I
It
met some
is
cool.
sad though. We wish that the weakest people, the groups that don't have any money, could have gotten into Bitcoin early, could have had the foresight to hold it, could have listened to us and all those things. But instead, we get the kind of billionaires that we have and the kind of Bitcoin movers that we have who are kind of stabbing randomly at the world's problems, not having any effect. Whereas if it could have gone to a desperate group in need like this early, not like late, like El Salvador is great and it's interesting and everything, but it is so late. Like the party's already been going for years.
The thing that we have to remember also is that, I mean, there, and for being at that conference, I can tell you as an eyewitness, there were people trying quite hard. I mean, it's just the people rejected it. It's not like people weren't trying to spread the word to people who are really hurt by their governments. Their currencies are just obviously being inflated away. People were trying on the ground. It's just like, people. There's a big difference between talking the talk and walking the walk, and hearing about it and actually doing something about it. So the people who missed out in Africa are just like our friends who missed out in the West. We told our friends that our friends are obviously are wealthier people because if they're in the United States, and even if you're poor in the United States, you're doing better than most people in Nigeria and stuff. So yeah, it was, and also it was cool to to see some of the early people in Bitcoin that did become big and became scandalous eventually. I mean, he was already scandalous. Brock was there. He was scandalous. He was already a movie star in his day and had scandal. And then Vinny Lingham, Lorian Gamaroff, who's a friend of mine. But he's going off on some different tangents. But yeah, Vinny Lingham, I learned a lot from there. Actually, he reassured because there was a question at the conference. We'd already gone below 200. We were around 200 when I was at that conference in 2015. All right, in April of 2015, it was around $200. And the question they posed to the audience: how low do you think it's going to go? And some people were like $50. They were still scared. They were scared about it going to zero. And Vinny Lingham's like, dude, there is like a price where all the people in Silicon Valley are going to be like, back up the truck. I'm taking all of it. And he's like, it's not going below like 150. And it didn't. I think it touched like 175 for a second or something like that. And then I remembered, I'll never forget the back up the truck moment. And I was just like, yeah, there always is some backup. That I have a backup the truck price too. And I've remembered that at different times too, like in 2018, I'm like, when it was at 3,000, I'm like, there is a point where like if it gets to 2,000, people are going to all the rich dudes are just going to go wild and buy a bunch of it. And the rich get richer, but that's, part of the reason. I mean, they've got it in their head, some back up the truck type of a price, while the normies are just like panic stricken when it's going down like that. The long-term thinkers know, if a disaster occurs and it goes lower than most people think, I'm backing up the truck right here and then. So, and it was, after that African Bitcoin conference, coincidentally, I think, things just kept going up from there, slowly but surely. And we've never seen $200 again. And there were plenty of people that thought like it would be stuck there for forever and ever. There was really when I made that video and then into 2015, a lot of people said Bitcoin's going to zero. Still, they try to say it as an insult. Bitcoin, it was a legitimate fear, a truly legitimate fear that Bitcoin could go to zero. Just due to a lack of understanding, and who knows what could have happened with governments cracking down on it. It didn't happen, but it was a really legitimate fear back then. It really was a thing. But I was.
And I don't think it was so much absolute zero. It was more about zero interest. If people stopped programming Bitcoin, stopped writing about it, stopped telling their friends about it, if there wasn't any purchases, if it just kind of dipped down and then died, because if it went to $1 or something, I would try to buy them all. I'd put my money in. But at a certain point, then when it's down to a penny, I've lost 99% of my money. So it doesn't matter what I put in. I can't stop a giant crash like that. But I don't think it would actually gone to zero, but it was interesting. And we did hear you say in the video, it could be worth something or it could be worth nothing. And that really was true. It is important to warn people of that today. But then on the other side, I want to go to the ultra positive here and talk about the horrifying truth. Bitcoin is probably the best investment of your lifetime back then, and it's the best investment of your lifetime right now, even if you don't have any. We're still kind of in the same thing where all the things that we said originally about Bitcoin are still true. There's no reason to stop. Sure, a lot of people have sold things, like Adam said, they've bought cars or computers or houses, so they have less Bitcoin than they used to have. But for you that has no Bitcoin out there right now, Adam, do you think it's likely that they look back on this video 10 years from now and see the price today? I think it's, let's say, 63,000, and it's 630,000, or it's $6 million, and they say to them, wow, if I had put $100 in when those two idiots were talking about how 10 years ago 10,000 would have been a good bet. Do you think that's going to happen?
Oh yeah, it's in 10 years there'll be people who are like, oh my God, it was so cheap then. Instead of buying this house that's taxed at a 3% property tax rate in Baltimore City, I should have bought Bitcoin type of thing. I did. I see. The numbers will be. It just scales up over time. Okay. So it's fun. I think it'll be funnier when you look back at something in the hundreds compared to the tens of thousands. The 5-digit, the 3-digit realm is hilarious now. And I think the 5-digit realm, it won't be exactly hilarious in the future, but it'll be like, oh my God, I wish I could have gotten there. And you do make a great point about back in the day of the 3-digit realm, okay? And that it was more like Bitcoin just was like people feared, not that it was just a trend. Like people forget about it. It'll be like what do they call those little toys or whatever? Yeah, Beanie Babies. That it really was going to be Beanie Babies. Because you've got to if you put it in perspective, in 2014, what was 4 years before 2014 was 2010. What was Bitcoin worth then? So like there was a legit like a couple less than a cent or whatever. You
Well,
say
and who hadn't used software that had come and gone? Your
yeah,
favorite video game that went out
yes.
and the sequel came along. Your favorite version of Windows that was no longer updated. This happened, and for all we knew, Bitcoin was great. But Bitcoin 2.0 comes out next week. Everybody takes all their money in one big puff, puts it into Bitcoin 2.0, and the interest and everything goes to almost zero.
Oh yeah, there's so much. You had to just have a certain type of conviction that this was not, and I had that conviction that this was like the for me, I already was thinking like this is already like the internet in the the late 90s or whatever, or maybe before that, when people were like, well, maybe fax machines are just as good, maybe this will come back, and oh, it just had this big crash, so it's dead now and everything. And I was too young back then to make a to go all in on the internet. I mean, there were certain people that were able to do it, but I was too young then, and so I recognized, and I'm like, well, especially when 2016 came, I went all in 2016 is really when it was just all. I'm like, I'm not missing out this time. This is the internet again. This is the internet again. But it was so easy back in 2015 to say the complete opposite, that it was going. It was many more people were saying obviously it was going to zero than this is the internet. Type of thing, but I was on this is the internet side because I didn't want to. And there was a part of your brain that's like, how can one live a lifetime where you have these two different this is the internet moments so close together? Like, but think what I've learned of life is like technology has sped up so much that yes, we can clearly we can it changed my life completely. Yeah, this was the internet.
I think it's the other problem is that sense of being so early. I remember when I was on the internet early and I was trying to read everything and I was trying to read all the news groups and all the websites and all the web pages and anything I could get, all the information. And the same thing with Bitcoin when I started to get into it. And like you say, like many people, I knew about it before. I have old mentions in my blog where I say, it's not like they're trying to make you use a weird esoteric payment system like Bitcoin. And of course, I had none, but I mean, I knew about it. Like I would mention Slashdot. I didn't own any Slashdot, I would talk about it. In the same way, we all knew about these things, but they would go away. They'd come and go. You didn't know what would be the one.
Yeah, it was. I didn't think at that time when I made that video. I didn't think I was. I knew it was early in the process, but I didn't consider myself like back then. Everybody would be talking about the dudes in 2012 who paid $1. So I thought that was like those were the hardcore, man. But there was in the long run there was no difference between paying $1 and paying the $700. There's not right now. I mean, maybe you make a $63,000 profit or a $62,300. There's none at all. There's really none. And I eventually made in late 2015. I made a video like that. I did realize that eventually, as early as the end of 2015 when I was in New Zealand. I made a video that said, what, there's really no difference between paying a dollar and then paying what it's worth now, which was like $400, $500 or something like that. They're really way. It was just you
The
couldn't
the
get
other thing that I
100.
felt is once I read all this stuff about it, once I watched Andreas Antonopoulos videos and everything else I could get to on the internet, I was like, if I know this, and many other people know this, I kept expecting the next day that everyone else would wake up. And they would all be like, Bitcoin would go to $1 million like that day. And I would be like, oh, good thing I got in last week. And then when it didn't happen, when it actually did go down and your entire life savings is in it and you didn't have that much anyway, and now you have much less, and then it goes down, it goes up, and you're still with it because the technicals are still there. The things you read about it, 21 million coins, all this kind of stuff, the network sending money without a third party, without a bank or a trusted institution, it was still there. It was still amazing. but it just became this technical thing, right? It wasn't so much the money and the value and things. And I think we've really lost that. There's never going to be a point now where the Bitcoin price crashes and all the finance people shake out and it's just the technical people, a couple of libertarians and cypherpunks on the side, and everyone just goes back to talking block size and whatever the war is about and these kind of things. I think we've lost that. I think we're a financial instrument now. We're on CNBC, all these kind of things. What do you think, Adam?
Oh yeah, it's not. It'll never go to that. It's so ingrained in the normie system of economics in the United States of finance. It can't go away, and that's enough. But that's something you can use that to your advantage when you're debating. When people are like, "Well, the government's going to make it illegal," it's too it's so intertwined. There's so many special interests that are already, the ETF. That was the final stage. They're not getting
And we
that.
all thought the government would make the internet illegal after BitTorrent, after streaming video, after whatever point you want encryption, wherever you want to say the internet went wrong, the government should have crushed it. But we all know the government and the banks use the internet. And that's starting to become the case for Bitcoin as well. Although we're at an interesting point right now where the banks and so forth are holding the Bitcoin in the ETFs, they aren't really sending it around. We haven't seen banks say, we don't need this Swift service that sends our money, or we don't need ACH, or we don't need that deposit window at the Fed. We can borrow Bitcoin overnight. We've seen things like that on the Liquid network with some of the Bitcoin exchanges, and I applaud them for it. But we haven't seen the big banks actually using the network. They haven't had that explosion yet.
No, they have the way they don't want to rely on that. They want it to rely on they want to be the third parties in charge of moving it around. Let them try. I mean, I just think it again. This would be my wildest dream back in 2014, 15, and 16, just talking about the banks owning it at all. I did think people would wake up to it faster than they did at first, but then all of a sudden after 2017, it got on the news really quick, so that didn't shock me anymore. Like there were different levels of mainstream adoption I was impressed by, and that I would think would come at different times, and some came sooner, some came later. I mean, to this very day, there's some people though they've heard of it and they have no interest. I didn't realize how many people would one day hear about it and just not care. Like I thought, like, oh, if 100% of the people hear about it, then we're gonna have tons of people. That's not the case. We have tons of people, but not as much as I thought. Like there's so many people that know about it. Still, so many of my friends don't have it, and two of my friends or something have it. It's terrible. After all this, it's still I wear the Bitcoin shirt to my high school reunion. No one even asked me. No one even asked me about it or whatever, and they know I've got a channel and everything like that. It's just a good lesson to learn is like some people just they'll never change. They just are stuck in their ways. They like being normies. They like fitting in. They don't want to do anything that their advisor does not tell them to do. And so, yeah, don't I at one time thought like, oh, the whole world will get into it. No, now I think the maximum will be like 20% of people or something. And the Bitcoin could be so successful, it's only 10% of the people in the world use it for to store value, to trade, to whatever. So no, don't. There's still all these people who are like, yes. I mean, it's like a fascist love of the freaking Bitcoin. Like it must take over the world. Yes, all currency will be destroyed. Yes, yes. No, it won't. The dollar will remain king. It just won't. It just fiat will remain the king. That's it. The smart people will get into Bitcoin, and it will be fine. Don't worry. Don't have your feelings hurt that some slum on the streets of Cincinnati isn't using it. Okay, it's like no, not everyone's going to use it, and you can't force it upon anyone, and you can't make it the law that the only thing you could use is Bitcoin. Yeah, well, I guess some places have tried to do that, but yeah, it's that kind of goes against the Bitcoin ethos, like forcing it upon people and saying you could only use this or with the threat of force behind it or whatever. I mean, it's completely the nonsense that you hear out there. But anyway, that's neither here. Who knew back in 2014 when I made that video that countries would be, doing things like that? I mean, it's amazing. It really puts it in perspective.
Well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I think we've reached a great point in Bitcoin where Bitcoin is a punchline in every comedian's jokes. Every late night show, whenever they have something that's confusing, they're like, that's like forcing someone to use Bitcoin. Or when we're down, they're like, oh, they lost as much value on that stock as they did on Bitcoin. Or if we're up, they have a third joke where they say, oh, that guy made so much money, it's like he bought Bitcoin early. So we're there, but none of those things inspire people like, let's go try Bitcoin like you try AOL chat or whatever. They don't get off their ass and say, hey, I should buy $100 of that, see how it goes. They say, I understand that joke, comedian. I get the cultural reference of what Bitcoin is. So I think we've gotten to that point, which is incredible because it used to be Bitcoin, what the heck is that? And that's kind of a funny joke, but now we have three solid categories of jokes to build on.
Well, the main reason a lot of people don't get into it, besides not wanting to fit in, it's too complicated. And I got to admit, back in 2014, I thought it would be easier by now, and for the normies to actually, well, it's easy for them to buy it. That I was correct about, but like there's still a disconnect. There's still they did storing it properly just freaks them out, with the 24 seed recovery. So yeah, Coinbase has a very bright future of being a Bitcoin bank, of just storing everybody's Bitcoin for them. I mean, that's a real. We kind of like want to barf when we hear that, but I mean that's a legitimate thing. Not your keys, not your coins. No, nobody cares about that. I mean, the normies don't care about that. It's too complex that they want just Coinbase. They're used to banks holding all their money. They'll have Coinbase hold all their money. And I think with Coinbase, thank God for Coinbase. Thank God for it's been great for Bitcoin. It really has been good. Even I know people just nitpick it with it. Why can't they say the word Bitcoin? Why do you have to store it? Why don't they do that? I mean, he put his Brian Armstrong did a good job. He risked a lot, and he's getting the benefits for it now. And if it weren't for Coinbase, there'd be plenty of people that own Bitcoin today that would not own Bitcoin. So I'm not one of those guys that are like, God, it's again, it's the Bitcoin Inquisition. You got to be perfect, or else you get sent to the Inquisition. So that's been an interesting development too over the years, definitely. And I'm proud that I kept my unique beast ways, and I think everything out. I don't go with like the latest hardcore. I mean, there's so many people that just like, I have to be as hardcore Bitcoin as possible, and that's their philosophy, and they don't even realize who they're buying into, who they're supporting, some of the nonsense that's being spouted out there, and that they become part of a Bitcoin inquisition, which is disgusting. In my opinion, it's quite disgusting. But hey, it just shows how big Bitcoin is, that we have all these different factions. And yeah, we've had the splits and everything, but again, that's part of the whole drama and soap opera. But it's been such a ride, such a ride, such a ride.
Even right now, the Bitcoin ecosystem is up in arms against Brian Armstrong and Coinbase, alleging that they're rehypothecating Bitcoin, maybe selling not real Bitcoin to BlackRock with plans to pay them back later. But again, as Adam and I know our audience knows, if you buy Bitcoin on Coinbase, transfer it to your hardware wallet, you own it now. There's no threat of rehypothecation. It works just fine. You go there, you buy it, you send it to your wallet, they send it, it works, it's done. There's no, what's the threat here? I mean, I know at a large scale they don't want BlackRock doing it, but I agree. I think Brian provides a fair business, especially for the users who have no access to Bitcoin.
That accusation about Brian was made from a guy that doesn't use his real name on Twitter, and then Brian immediately responded to it with his real name, explaining, why it's not happening. And other people under their real names have said how, for this scenario to play out, there would have to be so much corruption between the government, the regulators, Brian. It's just like it's a conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory. He's got the Bitcoin. He's got the Bitcoin for these big honchos out there that are with the ETFs. They got their Bitcoin. They got.
All right, so we're going to head towards the end of the show, but we've had a really nice chat, and I want to go ahead and ask some of their questions to Adam while he's here. Thanks to Tune In Drop Out for the $20 donation. He or she writes, sadly, most of the people I was talking to about Bitcoin back in 2013 when the price was under 1,000 feel like they missed the boat. It's the people who are now just discovering Bitcoin that are excited about the upside potential. Adam, what do you think about that? The 2013 people are burnt out. maybe there's hope for the future Bitcoiners now.
He thinks the 2013 people are burnt out.
The
Read
ones who
that over
didn't
again.
buy. He thinks there's, I think it's kind of
Oh,
like an animal in the field where it has a broken spirit. You say, you could have bought Bitcoin at
oh,
420. Now you're looking at 60K, and you try to tell them you should still put $100
yeah,
in,
yeah, yeah.
even though you're getting so much less. Yeah.
There's so many people that do fall into that category. They're just like, oh, I could have, I should. It was so much cheaper, and they're just totally discouraged. That's just a fact of like. There was a guy I remember talking to almost exactly 4 years ago, here in Utah, actually, and he was just like, "Oh, it's already back up to 16,000. It was at 10,000. Oh God, type of thing." It's just like there's certain people they get fixated on certain. No, you got to again. You got to your scenario at the beginning of the show. Just like 10 years from now, it's hard to convince people that, that 10 years ago, it's going to be worth now more. I can't predict. Like what the simple thing I tell people is like every point in the history of Bitcoin, you go 4 years into the future, it's worth more. If you buy it today, it'll be worth more in 4 years. Can that make you feel better, dude? Or something like that? But most people, it doesn't make
Well,
them
and
feel better.
that's what I'm saying is the hardest thing about Bitcoin. And obviously, I've sold, you've sold, a lot of people bought alpaca socks. A lot of people make a ton of money, and you really do kind of have to treat yourself to something every once in a while. Not Adam, do what you want, of course. But what do you tell these people now? 10 years from now, Bitcoin will still be the best investment of their life. Right now, 63K. We're just saying that we don't know what it is. We're not looking at a chart, but it's still the best buy of your life. If you're looking at 630 for Bitcoin, if you're looking at 6 million, if you're looking at 60 million, and again, we're technologists. I'm a technologist. We're Bitcoiners here. That's what we believe. But if we're right, right? If there's a chance, right? If those, and again, I always think this quote from the movie Heist, David Mamet, fantastic playwright. He says, Gene Hackman says, "I try to think of what somebody smarter than me would do, and then I do that." And that's how he robs banks. And that's how you probably need to think about your Bitcoin investment, saying, sure, not just Adam, not just Tom are into Bitcoin here. The banks are in, the ETFs are in, the countries are in. Like, is it going to go away? Are they all wrong? Or is this trending towards everyone in the world being into Bitcoin, which would mean your investment now at 63K is solid?
Yeah, a good technique to do about the people that you were just talking about is say what I say. 4 years from now, it's going to be worth more because it's always, follow that trend. It's very simple to understand. You don't show people like that video though that I made 10 years ago. You don't show them that because they'll be like, "Oh, I totally missed out, man. What the heck? It's worth 5 digits. You bought when it was
I think you can tell,
420."
you can show them, but in a way, well, I don't know. Bitcoin's not going to go up the same rate. I can't really promise that. But if it doubles or triples, if it 10x's, it's still a great up. It's not 1000x or whatever,
Dude, if
someone might have
if it
gotten. So
doubles, I'm like, where else are you gonna double your money, dude? Type of thing. And as of today, you could say like Bitcoin. One of my sayings is Bitcoin always returns to its all-time high. Its all-time high is $73,000. That's $10,000 away. So don't think you paid so much. I mean, 63 sounds like a lot, but it was worth 73 just a few months ago. And I want to correct you on one thing. You said you sold, I sold. You can ask Mr. IRS and Mr. Coinbase. I have never sold a Bitcoin for fiat. Pound that like button. And you better believe I am running low on fiat now. The plan was to make it to the 2024 halving. I made it. And when I go back for Rosh Hashanah for on October 1st to Baltimore, I got to figure out how I'm going to dredge up some freaking more money, like from credit cards or what am I going to do here? Like I got some stuff written down and stuff, but no, but I'm gonna have to sell soon. I'm definitely gonna have to sell soon. But darn it, man, making it 11 years, it's it's obviously freaking awesome. Anyway, but no, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. But I'm gonna no, I'm running. I'm running. I'm like in debt at this point. Like I've got all sorts of things going on right now, and I'm juggling a lot of special deals and stuff with various credit cards and everything like that I'm living off of. But it's still fun. It's still amazing. But I had to decide soon, and I Mr. I'm gonna have to. I don't want to give Mr. I like every time I make a milestone, like I made it past the halving, like maybe I can make it to 2025. but I don't know. We're kind of cutting it close here, because if I make it in 2025 and I sell Bitcoin like January 1st, 2025, just a teeny little bit of it, just so I can, won't totally run out of money and everything. Then I wouldn't have to do, it'll be on my taxes that I do in 2026. Just like it looks like such a pain in the tuchus to deal with it, and to just write a check to the IRS. Like, it's just against my, I don't want to give the IRS a piece of this, and I hope that they maybe they'll change the tax rules in the future or whatever. But I just wanted to correct that the strong hand, the long term thinking, it becomes wild after a while, man. You become it's good. It's been good. So it's quite a ride, baby. Quite a ride.
It's an awesome hodl. I'm not sure what to say. It's amazing. But at the same time, as we dollar cost average into Bitcoin, there might be a way to dollar cost average out. When the price is really up and you're feeling really good, maybe take a little bit, pay off the credit card debt, pay off the higher interest loans, things like that, pay off the college debt if you have that, or make improvements to your life. Shout out to MSBitEth in the chat. He bought himself new teeth and new eyes. That's a great investment, investing in yourself, keeping yourself healthy. And it's a joy that Bitcoin and having a little extra money. I never had any extra money as a college student or anything like that. I've always worked and paid my way and had not much left over. But if you can have that extra money, especially doing things like going to the doctor, paying the bills, taking your pets to the doctor, things like this are the really special things you can do with a little extra money when you sell your Bitcoin. I want to do a couple more of the comments in the chat because I really respect everybody for being out there. Crypto Phil says, Adam, I used to be a big listener, very interested in smart contracts and Ethereum. He's interested on your thoughts against the SEC versus Richard Hart. And it seems like a fair question. I don't think he's trolling. So, I mean, obviously, we had Richards on the show. Go ahead. I'll do just a little bit. Yeah.
Let's talk about Richard Hart when he would appear. You brought him to the world. It's because of you people know who Richard Hart is. He had his break on this very show. Okay, and Richard is he's definitely a long-term thinker. He had a plan. Oh, he had a plan, all right. His big thing when he was on Thompson's show and my show was, Bitcoin was the only thing out there. It was going to go to $20,000 no matter what. He was going to be right, and he would belittle people who talked about altcoins, insult them. People would cheer him on because they couldn't, they were living through him. And he created a cult, successful cult. Now, when Bitcoin did crash from 20,000 all the way down to 3,000, there was some video where he was almost maybe crying. I don't know. I never even saw that thing. But I always predicted with Richard Hart, once he did make his own coin, and there are videos of me saying this, and his minions say, oh, no, it's not true. I'm like, he's not coming back to the United States. It will be insane for him to walk back into the United States. They will arrest him right away. Okay? So he knew darn well that eventually there was going to be a lawsuit again. The SEC would go after him. Of course. I think anyone should be able to print their own money. I'm not against what he did. Like, anyone should be able to print their own money. I don't think there should be the SEC and all this nonsense regulating us and everything like that. I think what he did was fine. But I knew that if you follow the SEC, if you follow the government, he was doomed. He had to know it too. And that's why he isn't coming back to America. And that is why he is avoiding it. Okay. He's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. But man, he cannot come back with his real passport to America. They will arrest him right. I mean, that'll be the end of it. But I was saying that long before they even brought the charges against him, that he can't come back to America. That's it. He sealed the deal by doing all this. Because if you follow the letter of the law, he did sell it directly to people. He tried to say all these weird ways of getting around it and everything. I think anyone should be able to do what he did. I think that I wish we lived in that type of world where anyone could print their own money. I really do. But we don't. And so, yeah, he's not coming back. I just keep saying what I've been saying since before. He's not come back to America. That's it. He gave up. That's it. And he seems to have fun in Europe. He buys fashion bags and he gets money from people. And he's got a plan. He'll pump it up again. He'll do something. He could drag this out a really long time. He's doing very well. I also said back in the day that when he started making a PEX, that he wanted to become a billionaire. Like, that was probably his goal. And I think on paper at one point he was a billionaire. He was. So he did attain his goal and everything like that. But no, he is quite. He's not a. I don't think he's a good dude. No, I don't think he's. But he should have been able to do it. But people forget his history, like that he straight up was a Bitcoin maximalist on my show, on his show, on Thomas's show, and just was so mean to people who were into altcoins. And he just revert. But he knew, and then he would always say, he kind of mentioned on the side, like, I might have an ICO one day, or I will have an ICO, and this is what he had planned. The whole hex thing, what it morphed over time, but he wanted to have an ICO very early on, as early as late 2017. He wanted to have an ICO, and it morphed into this, and it was going to be something different. And then he switched. He just switched it on the dime and didn't. The altcoins were fine eventually. It was totally great. I mean, you could do that when you're a cult leader. That's what it's about. You could just, no one will question you. Well, of course he's right. He's a Gnostic. He's Gnostic. It's fine. He's got powers that give him insights that make him special, so he can just change his mind. It all makes sense, even though it makes no sense. How can it makes your philosophy was Bitcoin only, but now it's like, oh no, I can print my own thing. And people say, oh, that makes sense, but it makes no sense because he's a good cult leader. That's what it is about.
Well, as Uncle Vitalik said, if you really want to get rich, print your own money.
Well, I want to also say something. The guy also asked me about Ethereum and smart contracts. I think smart contracts are totally legitimate things. They are real. We can't even fathom what they're going to do one day. I think Ethereum goes through these cycles where it gets battled down pretty bad. 4 years ago, the same thing happened to Ethereum. The only thing different is there was no Solana back then being funded by venture capital people competing it from the other side. So it should be interesting. I think right now Solana is easier to use than Ethereum. It's a smoother process with their wallets and everything like that. But Ethereum is not going anywhere either. It's in better shape than Solana long term because it's already got its ETF approved. I mean, if Kamala Harris becomes president, it looks like she is. Again, all the Trump people are just like, I'm sure Trump's going to win. I'm like, dude, if the polls stay the same, you know he's not going to win. It's like, but no, they're wrong. No. Anyway, so I made a show about this. Like, Bitcoin people, you got to be ready for Kamala Harris to be president. And so if she becomes president, then the ETFs will stop. I don't think there'll be a Solana ETF and all of that. If Trump becomes president, there'll be all sorts of ETFs coming in and stuff like that. But that's it. If you're a Bitcoin holder, you can kind of watch that from the sideline. But the question was, smart contracts and Ethereum. So I think it'll be fine over the long run. I think there are a lot of Bitcoin people that make fun of Ethereum and they've never used a smart contract before. You use the freaking Uniswap. You use Uniswap. Play around in Uniswap. Play around with those things. It's pretty amazing freaking stuff. Okay, if you have a brain and you play around with it, you could think of all sorts of scenarios that are very beneficial with a smart contract. I mean, Ethereum's point is to get around government regulation. I've said this before. I think a person in Africa will be able to stake their dollar-based coins on some Ethereum decentralized contract and get interest on it. So, but they can't open a bank account delineated in dollars anywhere else. Like that's a cool thing. Like, because if you're a citizen in Africa or whatever, you can't open a bank account in the United States and get dollar interest on it. But you can just go to some Ethereum smart contract or Solana smart or whatever with your dollar stable coin, and you get interest on it. And that's a way to preserve your wealth. It's quite amazing. So these things are real. These smart contracts provide ways of getting around government regulation. But a lot of Bitcoin people are just, it's a scam. There was a pre-mine in 2014. There was a pre-mine. I mean, who cares? I mean, it's not Bitcoin. It's doing something completely different. And you're a Luddite. You're like a Luddite if you don't like the technology that's involved with smart contracts. Like, let the world progress. Be a confident decentralist. Let them do what they're going to do in smart contract land, and you do what you're going to do in stable money land. I love that I can completely protect my wealth with Bitcoin. I love that. But it interests me that we're going to have a future where things are so complicated. The smart because I used to kind of like not even understand. You have to play around with their smart contracts to really understand the difference between Bitcoin versus Ethereum, Solana, and all those other things. Bitcoin is great that it's simple, that you can't do all that nonsense on it. That's great. Not nonsense. I mean, it's not nonsense. I still use the wordage of the Bitcoin maximalists and everything like that. But that you can't do those things on Bitcoin is great. It should be simple because it can break otherwise. And as you've seen, Solana has broken a few times. It's amazing. So no, but then people are like, haha, it broke. It's going to go to zero. No, you don't realize the normies don't care when these things break. If they turned off the Ethereum blockchain today, no one, they would. All the Bitcoin people would be like, victory. But then they would turn it back on, and people would be like, yeah, okay, they turn it off. They don't think they don't care about the decentralized aspects of Bitcoin. This is the way of the world. People have different values. You value decentralized. Some people value fast transactions and smart contracts. It's different. You could both be right. Value is subjective. Value is totally subjective. I mean, people valued Hex because there was a cult leader. I mean, that's their thing. It got some value because of that.
Yeah, the kind of people who wrote Bitcoin are the kind of people who are into uptime, where their servers don't crash. But like you're saying, if you have to shut the server down for 10 minutes, it turns back on. No one really notices. Everything goes on. But if you're into that perfection thing, then it does hurt you. Just a little bit more, unfortunately, on Richard Hart, but I don't want to talk about it. They do say he's visited the United States to see his mom. He fitted her a bidet for her toilet. So that's very nice. Nice for him. And they do say some people still like Hex in the chat. So good luck with that. Check out the Highest of Stakes documentary about Richard Hart. It's pretty interesting.
These cult members they say the same things. Check out his documentary. I still believe.
It is.
I mean,
It is interesting though. At the end of the documentary, unfortunately, they don't have the final price on Hex. At the end, they still kind of say, "We don't know if it's going to go up or down. We don't know if it." Whereas I think now they're well down. Like we're not going to talk about this anymore because it's not what we came here to talk about. But I think they're well down. Good luck to you guys on Hex. Good luck to Richard Hart. Sure, I'd talk to him again. I always thought he was an interesting guy. He expressed himself very well, no matter what it was. He had cool backdrops with chandeliers and crystal stuff. He showed up on time. Like Adam said, he did our shows. He was respectful about it. He's always been respectful. So I wish him the best of luck.
Great marketer. Great marketer.
Yeah. But check out Adam's Meister's Bitcoin channel, Bitcoin Meister on YouTube. Also, the video is pretty short, so maybe we'll play it just one more time. If you guys are tuning in 10 years ago on this day, Adam Meister made this video about Bitcoin.
Going to Bitcoin, which is related to all these matters, actually. It's a currency that no government controls. And I know a lot of you like to waste money on crazy things, buy a $50,000 car. Well, do this. Instead of buying your $50,000 car, get a $25,000 car and invest $10,000 in Bitcoin. Oh, well, wait a second. Bitcoin could go to zero, couldn't it? Right now it's around $420, I think, for one Bitcoin. But guess what? If you get a car for $50,000 in a few years, it's going to be worth $10,000. So you're going to lose the money anyway. Okay? So with Bitcoin, there's an upside. Sure, the $10,000 you invest in Bitcoin could be worth zero, but also it could be worth $100,000 one day. You don't know. Going to Bitcoin, which is related to all.
You don't know. It could go to zero or it could go to $100,000. Instead, it goes to $1 million.
As you can see, I don't buy new clothes either since then. That's how you get rich, people.
Well, you can't go wrong supporting your team. And good luck to Baltimore there. Good luck to Adam Meister. Thanks to everybody for watching. And I guess the last question, Adam, what should people do watching this video now? If, God willing, we stay healthy and the internet stays together, we do this again in 10 years as a celebration, what will we be saying to them 10 years from now?
Well, first of all, we're going to say we're in the beginning of a bull market right now. So if you don't have to sell, don't sell right now because if you do every 4 years, 2025 is going to be awesome, just like 2021 was, just like 2017 was, just like 2013 was. But for people, just it's all the governments of the world keep on printing. Okay, this thing, this is not getting inflated away. It's still growing, and this is the internet. This is your chance to get it on something that's like the internet, and it's easy to understand. But again, in terms of technology, AI will be just the third internet type of thing. But we're having more and more of these things. So I mean that's a prediction for 10 years from now. If you're watching, your AI is going to be so awesome by then. And I think well, yeah, AI affects every single aspect. It might. I think AI is bigger than cryptocurrency because one reason only, that it could cure or could extend lives to 200 years. I mean, that's bigger than cryptocurrency right now. If it figures out how to cure all disease or something like that. And yeah, that's another thing. My fiat that I have spent on like luxury doctors and stuff like that. It's been pretty awesome. So I do advise people that's the first thing that you check into. You only get one life and one body. You want to feel as good as possible during that time. But no, for you 10-year people, you're laughing at us right now because it looks so cheap. And yeah, I just you've had some awesome adventures up there in God, what year they're in? 2034? Whoa, man. That seems so futuristic.
2034, not so far away. And like you said, Adam, if people watch this video, it will probably because the AI mined it out of the giant pile of YouTube videos. And it said, oh, this is interesting. And it got it because of the novelty of the 10 years. It'll say, ooh, 10 years exactly. The humans like these exact celebration things. They like these number thing. And it'll do the same thing that I did and that you did. And I think we're all starting to do that's pretty fun to do, although sometimes it's sad, where you mark a bit in time and you say, the price of Bitcoin on this day was this. And I had a fun one where I made a video in August 2018, and I gave these people a flyer. If they'd put $100 in Bitcoin when I gave them a flyer, it would now be worth $1,000. And it's only been 6 years. So 6 years, 10x, 10 years, it goes from 10,000 to a million. Who knows where it'll be in the future? But thanks to Adam Meister for being there with us, for being the Bitcoin Meister. We're going to just close the show out here. Thanks to everybody in the audience giving us a thumbs up, joining us in the chat for this early kind of random show. I just saw Adam's tweet. I thought it was so great. I wanted to talk about it more, get the background out there for you, get the history for you here on Today in Bitcoin History on the World Crypto Network. So subscribe down below, subscribe to Bitcoin Meister, and until next time, bye-bye.
Pound that like button.
They